There is a question that I have not heard anyone bring up regarding this issue with Donald Trump and Joe Biden and this whole issue with missing documents. In an interview with Sean Hannity, Donald Trump stated that as an executive, merely by thinking about declassifying a document, you can declassify it. That there can be a process, but there doesn't necessarily have to be one. Those are his words, and I will give you the link, and you can listen to him say this for himself. If this is the case, if Donald Trump's defense is actually true and righteous, and he would be exonerated based on that, wouldn't that also exonerate Joe Biden for anything that might be found in the future in his possession? Because if he's asserting, speaking of Mr. Trump, executive privilege, that there is some constitutional authority that he has that when he comes into possession of a secret or top secret document, that he can by at will and thought, by virtue of thought, declassify it and no longer make it secret or top secret, then that in the future would apply to any other executive retroactively and could be used as a defense. Joe Biden, Barack Obama could use it to exonerate Hillary. We've heard all about the emails. Has anyone thought about this? Has anyone brought this up? Here's one of the links to many links, and I'm sure many of you have already seen it. Fox News and SeanHannity.com has it. Trump claims he could declassify documents just by thinking about it. And I listened to it. It's exactly what he said. Just by thinking about it. What if there were something in the possession of Joe Biden that were much, much more serious regarding 2020, regarding things that happened way back during the Obama administration? He could just say, well, I have possession of that because I declassified it just by thinking, or Obama declassified it just by thinking about it, based on Donald Trump's defense. A lot of people are interested in this whole Burisma thing. It could give him a way out. It could give Joe Biden an excuse. There could be 1,000 different things that haven't even been thought about yet. I haven't heard a single person make this argument that Joe Biden could use Donald Trump's defense if Donald Trump's defense pans out. It's kind of what we talk about at the Florida Maquis Patreon channel. Using clear, concise thought and not just emotions to make assessments about the direction of the country, what we should do, where we should go, who we should choose to lead. There's a lot of people that want to emotionally just wash their hands of it all and say, oh, I throw my hands up in the air and I give up. They're all on the same team. There's nobody that could possibly, that we're considering ever lead, because if they're up there and they're being considered, they must all be on the same team. And these are some of the same people that were really so excited about, the former president. If it can't be their guy, then it's nobody. Some don't remember this, though. Communist propaganda and whataboutism. The next time someone mentions any injustice, and I feel like I am tempted to say, but what about? I need to remember that in the scope of history, I am sounding a lot like communist propaganda. Whataboutism was a favorite tactic of the Soviet propagandists during the old Cold War. I hear this a lot about socialism. That everyone loves to take socialism and say, well, what about this ancient thing or this other ancient thing where socialism was present and this bad thing happened? We have socialism present in this country. Socialism was present and prevalent very heavily during World War II and thereafter in this country, and we built a huge, beautiful, wonderful, free, full of liberty country. But do you know what the biggest knock that the communists had on the West was for so many years? Was that ultimate liberty left unchecked to any group of people would lead to demise. It's a form of the reverse power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. It's the same thing they said with freedom. that you give somebody a little bit of freedom, a little bit of liberty, and a little bit more will be taken, and a little bit more will be taken. Personal power, personal authority. And eventually, what we're seeing now in our country is coming true. Exactly what the communists said. Now, and that doesn't mean that we should have been communists. But how is this any different than what Donald Trump said? Because he said he was negotiating for the return of the documents almost a year after the subpoena. And he said he had good reasons to do it, whatever those reasons were. Okay, don't know. There was a subpoena issued for the documents. He refused to honor the subpoena. But the White House defends delay in revealing classified documents at Biden's private home. How is this any different? You see, there is a basic fundamental difference. That they have recordings of Donald Trump conspiring to obstruct and conspiring with others to say, well, what if we just told them we didn't have these? It's, and if you've heard them, it's pretty damning. So, and I think if I could sum it up calmly, I would just agree with what Miss Sarah Griffin says here. Sure, Biden's a weak president. I'm not a fan either. We have a crisis at our border. Absolutely his fault. Inflation is bad. Once again, we have a debt crisis. China's on the rise. These things are all true, but the notion that only one man can solve this is absurd. In fact, it's demonstrative that, he can't. It's too big a problem for any one man. So, I guess I will just leave that there and let folks ask those questions. We had a time in this country when, right after the war, people decided that, freedom had won the day. And they decided that, well, we can't interfere with anybody's pursuit of happiness. Every Western society in the 1960s, there was a moral revolution and abandonment of its entire traditional ethic, of self-restraint. So, and I think it's led to this as well. I have another thought-based question for the crypto folks, and I hadn't thought of this either. It's something that I've never heard asked anyway. And maybe someone from the crypto community can enlighten me. I had made this allegation that it was much like what occurred in the series Black Sails, where there were some pirates, and they were in the Bahamas, and they were in the West Indies, basically what we call the Caribbean. And they had stumbled upon in the series this huge treasure trove of Spanish gold, this ship called the Urca de Lima. And it was more gold than any of them had ever seen would see in 10 lifetimes. And so this huge group of pirates decided how are we going to divide up all of this wealth, all of this gold? And so one of the pirates, actually a girl working at one of the brothels, made a mental leap, saying that, we need to convert this gold into other things, other types of things that people value, like rubies and emeralds and black pearls and all these other things, so that we can hide the wealth for when they come for the money, so that we can spread it around and they'll be looking for gold, but we'll have it converted the currency into other things. So here's my question for the crypto people, and maybe I just don't understand it. Let's say around the world, 1 million people decided to invest $1,000 into cryptocurrency, and then over the next year, cryptocurrency doubles. Now it's all worth $2,000. Okay, now remember, it's 1 million people. Where does the extra $1 billion come from? Because if no real wealth is created in cryptocurrency, nothing in reality, nothing tangible is created. The network is the network is the network. If 1 million people had an extra $1,000 and then there's a 100% increase, and now the next year they have $2,000, let's say they all decided to cash out. They all decided, we all want our money back. We want our, 2,000. Where does the extra $1 billion come from? And conversely, what about in this particular case? Let's do it in reverse. They had invested $2,000. It dropped by 50%. And now it's only worth $1,000. What happened to that $1 billion? Where did it go? Where did it just evaporate into the ether? You see, cryptocurrency can be seen as both a money shredder and a money printer at the same time. And I think that's why we're seeing stories like this come out now. Banks are cutting off Binance's access to U.S. banking system. These cryptocurrency exchanges are getting pushed out. And banks are saying, look, we can't have X amount of dollars just magically disappear based on speculation in the crypto markets. And we can't have it appear or just reappear. And it's, they're talking about, not tens, but hundreds of billions of dollars. Bloodbath, sudden $1 trillion crypto crash sparks fresh Coinbase warning. Of course, you get that. 1 second. Warning, and tanks the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, and blah, blah, blah. $1 trillion has left traditional banks. I think this is why we're seeing a huge uptick in the IRS looking into this. Because the money could just be gone, or it could just be somewhere else, or money could be literally be growing on trees somewhere based on speculators. I really am curious, where does the extra money go in a loss, and where is it magically sprout from in a speculative bull run of crypto? Where does all that extra money come from? Does it have to be printed? Does the Federal Reserve have to print that money? And if it's going in the shredder, wouldn't people think that would affect our economy? You see, another reason that I used black sails was because this was a very interesting paradigm. You had these guys that were going out and they're pirates and they're stealing things. So people had wealth, and then all of a sudden the wealth was gone. It just disappeared. And then a lot of these guys would take their newfound wealth and then they would spend it on time with the ladies in the brothel. And from their perspective, all of their work, all of their effort, all of their time, all that money has now just disappeared and they're walking away with nothing. See, in traditional economy, you go buy something and then you have something of equivalent value with you in your hands, whether it's a loaf of bread, whether it's a bottle of wine, a bottle of rum, whatever you want to buy with your money. But in this paradigm, you're seeing money just disappear and nobody having anything to do with. Now, in this particular case, the money ends up in the hands of the girl who works at the brothel, and then maybe she goes and spends it on something else. But it's the same concept. Where does the money go? And for what? And what is created? See, this is the only purview of alternative currencies, as it was back then, weapons and mind-altering substances and certain kinds of company. So, I guess it gets filed under the things are not quite as they, what you would think they would seem. Yesterday we watched a video of Donald Trump asking Hillary Clinton to stand up for a standing ovation and him clapping for her, and it's exactly the opposite of what anybody would have thought. And now we have Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom aligning and getting together. Donald Trump has stood with Disney. Donald Trump's son has stood with Anheuser-Busch. And now here's from 14, Trump, Newsom echo each other, attacks in an effort to take down the governor of Florida. Don't you think that's odd that they would align so much? And in this particular one, Newsom has rare praise for Donald Trump, but calls his indictment sad. I think it's very odd. I mean, for those of you out there who call yourself conservatives and patriots and liberty-minded, to see so many examples. The congratulating of Kim Jong-un. The withering attacks that we have heard on conservatives from Mr. Trump. I've heard in the last month, tell me if I'm wrong and tell me if you don't agree with me. Withering attacks on other conservatives. Never heard him say a negative word about Mr. Newsom. I don't think it's an accident that Mr. Newsom's ex-wife is married to his son. You know, apples don't fall far from trees. So, I guess, you know, this is my point. Not trying to get, you know, overly upset about this today or overly, but I think we should stop, think, take a breath, and say, wait a minute, could we have some unintended consequences down the road? Just like with the whole Bitcoin thing. Where does the money go? Where does the money go? And when things are good, where does it come from? How does it just magically appear? I mean, think about it even in smaller terms. If 10 guys, or I'll say 100 guys, give somebody $1,000 and speculators decide to speculate the value of whatever that $1,000 was put in up to, you know, 3 or 4 or 5 times, and those guys want to cash out, where does the actual cash come from when there's no business, you know, that's being backed by this? And also, here's another good question. Who was it that decided the quantity of Bitcoin that would exist in the world? One of the big things that cryptocurrency people love to brag about is that there's a limited number of Bitcoin out there. Who decided on that? What man, what human being, what individual decided there will only be X number of Bitcoin? Because somebody had to pick that number. See? That's the point. Things don't exist in a vacuum. So I'll leave it there. God bless. Have a great weekend. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you guys next time.